Welcome to Live United. Today I'm joined by Erica Lusick-Bingham from Western Hillsboro Family Services. Welcome, Erica.
Hi.
At Live United, we have an opportunity to share stories each week about all the good work going on in the Monadnock region that's making a difference in people's lives. And we're fortunate to have Erica. She's going to tell us a little bit about the history of Western Hillsboro Family Services, which is also part of Southern New Hampshire Services.
That's right.
So tell us, how did you come about, and what are you doing up there in Western Hillsboro?
So Western Hillsboro County Services is it started as one thing, and now it's gotten, after 17 years of me being there and 20 years of being in Peterborough. Southern New Hampshire Services was originally the 501c3 for a much smaller program, which was the children's programs that we run out there, and they were just at one apartment complex. And we needed someone to oversee the grant that we were getting from New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to run summer programming at the apartment complexes, where we noticed as sort of a cyclical, every summer kids were getting in trouble. And it's grown since then to be Western Hillsboro County Family Services, and we now do family services and GED and literacy and children's programming and parent education, and we're really a full-service family services, because a lot of what we do is collaborate with other agencies and make appropriate referrals to help people get pretty much any service that they could be looking for. And we feel that our partnership with Southern New Hampshire Services, who are now part of the agency as opposed to just having them help us with our 501c3, we can refer to all the programs you can access through Southern New Hampshire Services. And Southern New Hampshire Services has Head Start and Fuel Assistance and WIC are just some of the ones that people are really familiar with. And it's really helpful for us when we're trying to provide family services sort of in a rural area, although some people don't think of it that way. There are some very rural folks who live in our area. It's just really been helpful. And Southern New Hampshire Services has been around for 48 years. Community Action has been around for almost 50 years. So Southern New Hampshire Services has been around for 48 years, doing what Lyndon Johnson put out there as the Anti-Poverty Act. So he had this pool of money that he set aside to fight poverty in the United States right after he became president, and who was going to administer it. And so that's how Community Action came into play. So locally here in Keene, people know of Southwestern Community Services. Southern New Hampshire Services is a community action program just like that. There are 1,000 of them nationally. And so it's the 50th anniversary of Community Action coming up. So that's really exciting for us to know that we've been fighting, the causes of poverty and creating self-sufficiency for 50 years in the United States.
Well, that's fabulous. Now, you mentioned that you started in an apartment complex, and that you've grown really big now and covering a lot of area. What communities are you serving?
Well, if you think of Western Hillsboro County as sort of Limeboro west to the county border, which would be Dublin. We don't serve Dublin necessarily, but my way of doing business is, if you call me up, I'm going to help you out. So if you call me from Jaffrey and you're actually in Cheshire County, I'm going to make sure you get referred to the right agency, or I'm going to help you out. I'm not going to turn you away. But that would be New Ipswich, Greenville, Limeboro, Peterborough, Temple, Sharon, Dublin, Hancock, Hillsboro, Antrim, Bennington, Francistown. I mean, there's a lot of little teeny towns like Limeboro that don't necessarily know where they should access services. And so it would be with us. It would be at Western Hillsboro County Family Services. And if they call our number, they will get me, because I'm the one sitting behind the phone. We're really pretty much a couple of people show. And we'll make sure they get referred to the proper agency, or we'll give them the help they need directly. The last thing I say to anyone who calls us, if that doesn't work, call me back, so that they know they've connected with somebody where they can get help. We're going to help them. We're not just going to say, call this number and I'm done with you. And that's, I think, really important, because we're looking for, like I said, self-sufficiency is our primary goal.
So a couple of times during the show, I'm going to ask you to share your contact information. Could you do that right now? Could you share your phone number and your email that
If
people
you-
can contact you with?
Sure. If you want to contact the agency, the big agency, which is Southern New Hampshire Services, it would be an 800 number. And for some folks, that might be the easiest way. It's 1-800-322-1073. To call me directly in the Peterborough office would be 924-9601. And another important phone number right now during this time of year would be the fuel assistance number in Peterborough, which is 924-2243. And those are all numbers that you're going to reach somebody who can help you or refer you to the proper place to get help. And it's really important. The website for Southern New Hampshire Services is snhs.org. And that's the best way to get a hold of somebody within the agency to find help. The phone number for me, really, that 924-9601, is the fastest, most direct way to get in touch with me to get immediate services in this area.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to repeat that at the end of the show, and so our viewers know how to reach you. You mentioned fuel service, and that we're obviously heading into winter. It's getting cold out there already. What do you anticipate seeing as the need?
Well, it's interesting. In this economy, we've definitely seen our numbers going up. You know, Southern New Hampshire Services served over 40,000 people last year, some of whom were fuel assistants. You know, that's individuals. So a lot of those are our fuel assistance customers. So I think that fuel assistance is probably, especially in this economy, one of our most accessed programs, and it's one I refer to almost on a daily basis. I get fuel phone calls. A lot of people think that if they, some things to know, so please call. Some things to know about fuel assistance is that if you live in an apartment complex and your heat is included in your rent, you still are eligible for fuel assistance, because the idea is that was figured into the cost that you're paying for rent. Then your fuel assistance benefit will go directly towards your rent. If you use wood, we can get a payout for your wood provider as long as you have an invoice, and there's somebody we know we can pay with an actual invoice. We can help people with their wood. Any types of fuel that you use to heat your home, electric, you know, propane, oil, whatever you're using, you can be eligible. If you own your home, you're eligible. If you don't own your home, you're eligible. Call. It's always best to call. A lot of people think they make too much money for fuel assistance. Call, find out. The guidelines for fuel are very different than the guidelines for, let's say, food stamps. So you may not qualify for one thing, but you will qualify for another. There's no reason for anyone in New Hampshire to be cold. Call fuel assistance.
That's a really important message this time of year. So you're serving adults with things like fuel assistance. I know you also have a GED program.
We do. Right in Peterborough, at our offices, we have GED services available. We've partnered with Lyft. One of the most important things that I do is find an agency that can help me provide a service, because I am one person and we want to keep our budget as little as possible. So we were able to partner with Lyft. They provide us with instructors. I do some of the instructing as well. They provide us with the materials. It's been fantastic. It's been a fantastic partnership. We didn't know, but just in Peterborough, there were 250 people in Peterborough at the last census who did not have a GED. If you want to work at the hospital mopping floors right now, you have to have a GED. It's right in their application. It's so important for people to move forward and, again, gain that self-sufficiency we're so focused on.
So are there any age limitations or restrictions attached to that?
You can get your GED in New Hampshire through your high school if you're under 18, and then once you're 18 or over, you can access it through Lyft or through our program, that collaboration in Peterborough. And one of the Lyft offices is located in Hillsboro, so that's who we're partnering with, the Hillsboro Lyft. There's an adult literacy program here in Keene as well, and I think that if you called your 211 number, you could get referred to that agency as well. But we're taking all comers. We're not just taking people from Peterborough. Anybody who needs to get their GED. That's the attitude that I've taken after 17 years of doing this job, is that if you need help, come see me and we're going to get you that help. I'm not going to say, oh, wait a minute, you're not from my area. I just have stopped. I can't work like that. It's just personally, I feel like we need to make sure everyone gets what they need.
And we're fortunate here in the Monadnock region because we're rich with some resources that you can connect with and partner with to achieve some of the goals that I know you have. And I know you've worked with a number of organizations, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other services that you're providing, because you have quite a repertoire of things that you are doing.
Yeah, well, I think that one of our most important things we're doing is we're doing children's programming, and I think that that really is an important place to start when you're trying to create healthy communities, is with the children. And we have after-school programming that we provide at 2 apartment complexes right on site in Peterborough, and we're working very closely with the schools and other agencies to make sure that these kids come home off the bus and have an enriching environment to go to in the afternoon. That's not to say they don't have great parents. It's just to say that some households aren't at a place where they can provide an enriching environment after school. And we have after-school help with homework. We do, different arts and crafts, science, all sorts of things. And those are the ages of 4 to 16. But what we've found is that the kids age out of our program and they keep coming back. We have one girl who got her GED with us, actually. She was the only person in the history of my program not to finish high school. And so I really got after her. When we had GED, she was my first GED recipient. It was really exciting because that really closed that gap for me personally. But she still comes to programs sometimes and sits down and chats with us. And we'll have kids come back from all over the country and chat with us who've been in our children's program. So the children's program runs year-round. Our summer program is incredible. We provide free recreation programming that includes the federal summer feeding program. So we feed them breakfast free. Then they have free programming until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we have lunch, also serve federal summer food programming. That's a collaboration with the Conval School District. Southern New Hampshire Services started the summer feeding program in this area, and Conval loved it and took it over. And now they serve at different sites as well as our site. So it's been a really great expansion of that. But that's really, that summer program relies really heavily on the Monadnock United Way funding that we receive. It's really important. And then we were able to get some other funding for our buses. We take them on field trips, and that's really important because we get them out in the community. Some of these families don't have a car, or they're a one-car family, and that car's at work all day. So these kids are stuck pretty much on site at the apartment complexes all day, and it's nice to get them out twice a week to go to the local swimming area, and they get to be part of their community. You know, they don't just have to go back to school in September and hear about what other kids did. And we take them to the ocean. Once a year we go to the ocean, and it's so much fun. We always bring a kid who's never been before, and sometimes that kid's a teenager, and they've lived here in New Hampshire their whole life. They've just never gone to the ocean. It seems amazing, but it's true. So that's really, of that program I love. We take them hiking. We have taken them camping in the past. It really keeps them busy, keeps them moving, keeps them from just parking in front of a TV all summer long. We go on bike rides, and we like to get out in the local community. And a big part of that is that we take them to the library. So every Wednesday, we go to the library, and some of the kids don't have a library card, and we get them a library card, and they are allowed to take out their own books. It's just wonderful to watch them learn about reading. To that end, we have some volunteers come in and read to them, young volunteers, 8th graders, and they will sit down, and sometimes they'll have a little boy on each knee and a little girl sitting holding onto their leg, and they're just so happy to have a young person reading to them. It's not just an adult who's interested in books. This is a young person, and they can make that connection. And where literacy is so important to success, we just feel like we like to push that angle, and they're involved in the Peterborough Library Summer Reading Program. And so we get them all enrolled in that, and they turn in their little slips of paper for how many hours they read, and they get their goodies, and their name gets drawn, and reading just becomes this fabulous part of their lives, and it gets woven in there. Now it's part of them. It's not something somebody else is doing, it's something they're doing too.
You know, you just made a nice link between the whole sort of academic piece, the reading, and we oftentimes think, I think that you know, the academics are so important, and we forget that that social, that emotional development for young people is just as critical. And it's part of how we can really nurture them and move them forward in their lives to have successful opportunities in the future. And it sounds like you're building on both of those aspects of their well-being.
Yeah, we feel that it's really important for them to see learners, and that learning is fabulously awesome. Like, that it's not something that only smart kids or nerdy kids are like learning and getting good grades. And we have them bring in their report cards to program, and we make a huge deal about a report card. If you got one grade on there that's fantastic, we're talking about it. We're not talking about the grades that didn't necessarily meet the bar. We're going to help you with those, but we're really focusing on learners and what opportunities exist for learners. I was really thrilled. So I was sitting, and I have a little sitting area where it's mostly the girls. The girls will come in. They're all sort of 6th through 9th graders, and they'll sit around and they'll talk about what 6th through 9th grade girls talk about. Well, the other day the conversation switched to what they wanted to be. And one of them wants to be a forensic scientist, and another one of them wants to be a chef. And it was just really, for me, so exciting that we weren't talking about boys. We were talking about possibilities, who they could be. And we got to talk about how do we get there and how we have to stay in school, because one of them there has a parent who didn't finish school and is working toward a GED. And it's just really, actually both of those girls have parents in their house that don't have a GED right now, and they're working toward them. So it's just really this fantastic opportunity for them to talk about being smart and having goals and being something, and it was just an open arena for that. And it was just, they were all talking about what colleges they might want to go to, and I just was so thrilled.
No, it's exciting to hear young people.
It was socially okay to be smart. It was awesome.
That's the good news.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's exciting to see that young people are engaged and really wanting to move forward in their lives and do some good things. You know, you mentioned that you have a couple of those parents that are working on their GEDs. At the same time, these young people are seeing opportunities for themselves in the future. What are some of the other things you do to support the families?
Well, our family services program, for me, they were doing family services prior to me coming and starting to do children's programming. So that's sort of they were doing some of that. It was more case management. The family services grew out of the fact that these families all needed services. So it was kind of, trial by fire, and we were like, oh, we can't have you become homeless. We really need to start a program so that we make sure that that doesn't happen. And oh, that's exactly how GED happened. I didn't know we had all these parents that didn't have their GEDs. It came out in conversation, and I said, well, let's do this thing. So that's kind of how I roll, is I'm a let's do this thing kind of person, and I'll work hard to make it happen, whatever the need is. So we change. Sometimes I remember in the very beginning, we had this huge need for shoes. Now we seem to have been able to handle that, and that doesn't seem to be as big an issue. So I don't have that partnership with the Payless that I used to have, and so in Salvation Army that we used to always work on getting shoes for kids. Now it's more academics, and there are some huge needs, but my family services program is really about urgent and immediate needs. Is that you come to me and you're going to be homeless on Friday, we're going to work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Or in some cases we're going to say, yes, you can't maintain this apartment. We need to find you another option, and we'll partner with an agency like MATS, the Monadnock Area Transitional Shelter, or Southwestern Community Services has a homeless outreach provider, and we'll partner with them to make sure that this family gets in the right sort of sheltering situation so that they can build themselves back to having an apartment, if that's what needs to happen. Or we'll work with the landlord, or we'll work with the towns, and we'll keep these people housed. That's a big part of what we do. We do a lot of job help. I help write resumes. I wrote a resume the other day for a woman who wants to stop doing what she's doing and work during the day. I work with local employers. New Hampshire Ball Bearing has always been fantastic, and the hospital has always been fantastic. I'm on the Chamber of Commerce Education Committee so that we can work to make sure that the kids at the high school are making those connections to the business community so that when they get out, they have a plan. If it's not going to be a 4-year institution, what else can you do in the area? And how can we provide the businesses with good workers, too? So we're trying to help training the workers that are going in. So, food, that's another big one. How do I get to the food bank? Like I said, a lot of these families don't have a car. It's lovely to have a food bank, but if you don't have a car, you can't go pick up a week's worth of groceries. So, we're getting people where they need to be with food, helping to get people to the right place to fill out their information for food stamps and other benefits. And we're making sure people have the medical care that they need and getting them that medical care before it becomes a big problem. A lot of what I do, I kind of feel like is fiscal conservatism, where I'm trying to get the problem handled before it's way more expensive and way harder to deal with. We're trying to cut it off at the pass. And our program's got a very small budget, but I feel like we can save the states and the towns a lot of money if we can work on these problems before they become big problems like detention. I mean, that's with the youth at risk that we're working with. I'm really trying to keep them on target because, my program only costs this much money, but it's $86,000 a year to house a kid in detention, and that's a 2010 number. So if we can keep them out of detention, we're saving everybody a lot of money. So that's our goal, and it's the same with the families. If I can help you get your GED and the town can give me a small amount of money, I can keep that family from coming back for $800 a month for rent. And really, a lot of these families are hardworking people. They just can't get that last piece to go together so that they can create that self-sufficiency and sustain themselves. A lot of the families that I'm working with, they go up, and we get them here, and then the very smallest thing can happen. It could be as much as, I don't have money to put gas in my car this week. And then, bam, we're back down here because we lost our job. And our training is so limited that there's really only one or two types of things that we can do. So it's a constant. I always joke and say that I will know I've done the best job I can do when I go out of business, because they just won't need me anymore. And wouldn't that be great?
I think that's the goal for all of us.
Yeah.
We'd love to see ourselves all go out of business.
Exactly.
In terms of the need out there. But we also know through the well-being report that was done a year ago that, economic opportunity and things like livable wage are a real issue here in the Monadnock region. And some of what you're talking about is that little tiny thing that can just tilt your life in a different direction. It could be, that bumper run in. It could be just about anything that can just have a kind of a negative impact. And we're fortunate to have organizations like yours that can help pick up the pieces. But part of what I'm hearing is it's not just for people that may be in dire need. It's really to help people in a preventative way, to really be able to get their lives on track. We also know that seniors are a real group in need. Are you doing anything with the senior population?
There's Southern New Hampshire Services works a lot with the seniors in the area, and because they have such a great network for the seniors, it's not something that I personally have to do. Because if you have a senior question, I generally refer you straight to the elderly poor they're part of the conversation right in Southern New Hampshire Services' mission statement, is to make sure that we address that. To that end, we have Greenville Falls in Greenville, which is in my catchment area, and we also have Greenfield Commons, I believe is the name of the other one, and those are both income-based elderly housing. They're lovely apartments that they are able to move into, and they provide for exactly those types of services. And I know Greenville Falls just got a bus, too. It's been really great, and they've been able to take the elders out and do things with them. And I didn't know a lot about the bus until people started calling me and saying, how can we utilize this bus? And I'm like, well, you have to call Lita at Greenville Falls, and she will help you out with that. But it's just been, I am always amazed. We have, I can't come up with the number, but we have elderly housing as far away as Maine. I think we're up to 25 buildings that house. They're just like that. They're apartments. So it's not assisted living. It's you get an apartment, but somebody's watching out for you, and there's activities that are happening there, and it's based on your income. So it's an affordable situation. You don't have to worry. It's hard. I'm actually watching a family where the mom is quite old, and they want her to move out of her house, and she doesn't want to because she doesn't see an independent way to do that. And these housing units are that. You come and go, you have your car, you don't have your car. If you don't have a car, they have a bus. And you have your space. No one's telling you how to decorate it. No one's telling you who to come visits. You know, yes, you're not supposed to have anybody stay there for more than 14 days. And it's really an interesting problem because this housing is so stable and so lovely that a lot of times the elderly person's family will have a problem and they'll move in. And then they jeopardize that elderly person's housing because they're trying to live. They know they can't, but they don't know what else to do. And this housing is so secure and stable that it attracts sometimes the younger family members. But
So you're providing service to all age groups.
yeah,
One of the things that you talked to me about before we went on air was something for the holidays and a special program that you have for families who may be in need of assistance.
yes. What happens with Christmas is that a lot of the programs, you get your forms for families. They're wonderful programs through the churches or the Rotary or Operation Santa. There's all these different Toys for Tots. Those forms are often due in November. So families who may be newly in need, they don't know that, or they didn't consider themselves as needing help. And I really have to put it out there, pay your rent. We can help you with Christmas presents. Don't put off paying the electric bill so you can make Christmas for your children. We have the ability to help you with Christmas. The way that it works at my particular agency, and people should know that we will be receiving our toys on the 20th, is that it's almost like shopping. I give you a bag, you pick out 2 or 3 things for each child, you pick them out. I put the toys out, and until the toys are gone, we will provide that service, usually until Christmas Eve if we're staffed. It really depends on the staffing. But again, that 924-9601 number, if you're coming up short for Christmas, and we don't tell my boss, but we don't go by county with that one. So we take, again, all comers, and you will have toys under the tree for your kids. The older children is our hardest thing. I think that what I would encourage people out there to do is, if you are one of the people who takes a card off a tree, take the names of the older children. I know it's really enticing to take that 2-year-old because you know you're going to get a little toy and it's very nice. A lot of the programs end at age 15, and so the older kids, I don't know any 16-year-old who really will understand not having Christmas. I mean, they'll say they do, but it's hard, and we don't get a lot of things for the older children, maybe some hats or mittens, or sometimes we'll get a football. But it's mostly younger kids, so if you think of them, the older children at Christmas are the ones that usually do without. And so, but our like I said, our toys will come into our site on the 20th. So if you have a need or know somebody who has a need, give them our number and we'll try and accommodate them.
That's a great message, particularly about the teenagers. I think it sometimes becomes the almost forgotten population. They get a little bit older, it's a little bit more expensive to buy them things. It's not quite as exciting and enticing as that, 5-year-old and getting them a toy. I know my church has just made the decision that they're going to fund a 15 to 25-year-old population this year. And it's partially for the reasons that you're talking about. It tends to be the group of young people that don't always get attention with things. So you're providing all these great services. Tell me a little bit about the impact that has on people's lives.
I think that we are a deep breath for people. I think they can sigh and almost feel, I think some people walk in and they're so untaken care of. And I don't know if that's not even a word, but I feel like what we do is come in and let's see how we can make things better for you. And the impact that has, it just is trickle down. If you get a stressed out mom and she doesn't know how she's going to pay her rent or how she's going to feed, then she's stressed out at home. And that creates, I hate to say, but a mistreatment of the children. Short tempers, I'm not deal with you right now, or if I am dealing with you, I'm dealing with you in a very brusque way. And I think that is really where we start, is if I can get the adults in the house to feel a little better about their situation, the trickle down to the children is huge. Maybe that means that they go to school when they weren't going to get to school. If I can help them keep things running in the house. If I can make mom feel a little bit better. I have moms who have a tendency to sleep in because they have depression, and they don't get their kids on the bus, and the kids don't get to school, and so the immediate impact is we're getting more kids to school. And that sounds like, how can you know that's happening? Because I'm at the bus stop. So I'm looking, especially at my office is right at one of the apartment complexes where I do a lot of the work. Or the kids will tell me they got to school, or the teachers will call me and say, "Are you still providing homework help? Because we haven't seen so and so in a long time." And then I go over or call or see what's going on with that family. So that would be an immediate impact is the children. Long term would be a thing like GED, would be if I just take one family and sort of make them into the demonstration, would be I have a family that accesses the town for about $800 worth of rent several times a year because they work seasonally, because they don't have a GED and they haven't been able to get a job that supports them year round. So when that person gets their GED, this is a very, very smart individual, when that person gets their GED, his employment opportunities will expand. He will no longer need to access the town 2 or 3 times a year for $800. And that's a savings to the town. Now, if I can do that with 3 people, people can do that math. It's thousands of dollars we're saving the town. That's an immediate impact on the town. Long-term impact is that guy's got a much better outlook, Even just coming to GED is such a huge step for him that I saw him, his sort of how he was changed. He knew he was making steps towards success. He knew he wasn't just the guy without the GED who could only pound nails. There was other stuff for him. He was seeing a future for himself. That's a long-term impact because now he shares that with his 5-year-old daughter. So, that's a long-term impact for her because now she has a successful daddy. She doesn't have a daddy who's got nothing going on. She's got a daddy who's got a lot going on. So that's not something we can necessarily put our finger on, but I'm in there and I can see it happening. With our high school students, like I said, we've only had that one girl who didn't finish high school and she got her GED. That's a huge impact. I mean, I talk kids out of dropping out all the time. One of the things that we do is I have a little chart and I'll bring it out and they'll say, well, it's going to cost this much for an apartment and this much for a car. You're going to have cable? What else are you going to have? And we get down to the bottom line. I'm like, you're going to need to make X amount of dollars an hour. You can't do that without a high school diploma. I just want to tell you that. All right, Miss Erica. They call me Miss Erica. I'm going to stay in school. I'm like, all right, if you have to. I don't want to get too excited about it. But I've talked a number of kids out of dropping out, and sometimes it's a hand-holding. We really have to help them out. School's a hard place for kids to be, and I don't mean the academics. I mean that there's a lot of anxiety in teenagers that makes them leave the building. And that's something for anyone watching to know that there's study after study after study shows that one involved adult, doesn't have to be a parent, can keep a kid in school. And that's a huge thing. Maybe you're that one adult. Maybe you have an extra hour to go to a program like mine in the afternoon and just be that one person who makes a difference in a young person's life. Check and see what you're doing, and if you have time to make an impact, be that one person. It doesn't seem like it's like that, but it is. I mean, you can look up the studies online.
So you mentioned volunteers. What are some of your needs for your program?
We love to have volunteers in the afternoon for our children's program. We also have a Birth to 5 program that we do, which is a parent education program where it's now moms of all ages. It used to be young moms, but now moms are having second families, and the children are 0 to 5, and we always need folks to come and play with the little kids because although we have 2 staff, myself and another person, I'm with the adults and the other person's with the children, and you get three 2-year-olds or 3 3-year-olds in a room, more than one set of hands is a good plan because we do an art enrichment craft activity with them or something like that. Our biggest need, I think, would be after school. We will have 15 to 20 kids after school at each site. We have 2 sites running simultaneously. Just due to budget cuts, we are lower on staff than we have been in the past. And we can always use that person who's willing to just come and read a book. You don't have to be a child expert to volunteer in our programs. What you have to be is somebody who wants to make a difference. And that's really important for us. We don't do child care. It's a free drop-in. So the kids come in, they check it out. If they look and we don't look available to them, a lot of times they leave. And we want them to stay. We want them to come and do whatever activity. If you're somebody who has a specific craft that you love to do, come do that craft with us. You like to play checkers, or you want to teach somebody how to play chess. We have kids who will just thrive on your one-on-one. A lot of these kids come from families with 4 kids in the family, huge age spreads, and it's really important that they get that one-on-one attention, and we try really hard to provide that, but a volunteer makes that so much easier. It's a feel-good. You walk away knowing you made a difference that afternoon. So, our programs run in the afternoon directly after school, which is 2:30 until 6 o'clock. We have no requirements for the amount of time you put in. We like to leave that up to the volunteer. It's supposed to feel good to volunteer, so we want that to be how we run that. Again, you can call that 924-9601 number, or we collaborate with RSVP, and that's here in Keene. And Kathy Baird has been fabulous over the years providing volunteers for us, and we've had some marvelous volunteers. We've had some volunteers who've lasted one day. I mean, I'll be honest, some of these kids are not the easiest kids to hang out with. That's why they're called youth at risk. And a lot of people think of youth at risk as kids who are already involved in dangerous behaviors. They're at risk of being involved in a dangerous. Our job is to keep them from doing that, and we've been doing a pretty good job so far. And they're at risk maybe just because they're in a single-parent household. That's one of the risk factors. Or they have parents that use substances. That's another risk factor. It's not necessarily about what the kid is doing. It's about what the environment the kid is growing up in is. So that's, volunteers. We like them.
Well, volunteers are important. Can people donate at all to the Toys for Christmas, anything like that?
We haven't had people do that in the past. We have an agency that collects the toys for us and gives them to us. If people wanted to drop off we're new and unwrapped is how we go, a lot like Toys for Tots. I think that at this point, their donations, that's a hard question, Kelly, because we've always dealt with this one agency, and I think there are so many agencies that provide this service that going and taking a name off a tree is probably your best way to ensure that your toy gets to a child. Your toy will get to a child with us too. I just have never had that question asked to me before. So I think we would never say no to new unwrapped toys.
How about coats, mittens? We're heading into winter.
Yes, we do. We do take donations. New is great. Gently used is all right too. We don't have a storage facility, so if we get more than about 10 coats, we really are in a studio apartment in one of our sites and in a community room, and the spaces are very small. So we had done clothing before, but there's a community clothing closet at the River Center in Peterborough, and that's a really appropriate place to bring those things. Again, I like to collaborate. I like to not duplicate. They're doing such a great job with this that I don't want to take away from what they're doing, because people have an expectation that they can go to that community closet and get the clothing that they need. So that's the best place to bring it, because that's where people expect to go and get those things. I will hand those jackets out to the kids. And the RSVP knitters, they're fabulous. We get mittens, scarves, and hats from those guys. It's great. Little teeny mittens. Those women must have a fantastic time knitting that stuff. But Kathy brings us bags of hats and mittens from RSVP knitters every year. So that's always, the kids actually wait for it, because they are like, well, I only have one mitten left. And I know I gave them 3 pairs, now I have one mitten left, so.
I want to make sure people are hearing that one of the things they can do is contact you to find out where you can find those things, that you are a collaborator, that you're working with a number of agencies who can provide safety net needs, who can provide referrals to other services people may need, and even you can connect them to transportation and things like that. I'm curious, are you doing anything on the advocacy level?
So, that's an interesting question as well. I mean, if we're not good to be silent, I suppose, but advocacy, as far as getting them to access their own programs. So I think when I am doing my measurements for success, a lot of times I will know a family's successful because they've stopped coming to me. And they're now out there managing themselves. And they've figured out, one of my favorite stories ever is that I had a mom, the very, 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 very beginning of me ever doing this. I was also doing special education at the elementary school in Peterborough. So I had a mom, and she met me for the first time at the Riverview Apartments where I was doing children's programming. And she came up and she introduced herself to me, and she told me all about her children. And she said, you know, I'm not going to make up the names, Bobby, Sally, Lewis, and Clark. I don't know, you know. So these were the kids. And I looked at her, and I said, I know, I'm Bobby's one-on-one aide. I've never seen you in a meeting before. How come? And so she just stopped. And she said, because I don't know how to go to those meetings. So here, I was a one-on-one aide for one of the kids that she was introducing me to, and she had no idea that I'd been this child's aide all year because she just hadn't she wasn't a bad mommy. She was super proud of these children. She went on and on and on and talked about them, and then I finally said to her, because I felt like in disclosure, she should know I know her kid. And so we found a couple things out. One, she didn't have teeth, and she needed some teeth. So we got her some teeth. She wasn't going to go into these meetings without any teeth. And so we got her some teeth. And the other one was, I don't know if you've ever been to a special ed meeting, but it's the mommy who has some varying levels of education. And there's a PT and an OT and the superintendent and the principal maybe, and then there's a special educator and the special ed aide, and then there's the classroom teacher. And then there's this little mommy or this daddy or whoever's at the meeting, and it's not a comfortable thing. So I became an education advocate. So now I go in to meetings with these parents. A lot of times I say nothing, and a lot of times I'm turning them into these advocates. Now they advocate for themselves. They become advocacy monsters, and they are in there, and they're really know how to work for themselves. And sometimes they tell their neighbors how to do this thing, how to go into this IEP meeting. I had one mom who didn't know what IEP stood for. And, you know, we sat in the meeting, and the teacher said, well, we can't make a special plan for everybody. And I said, that's why it's an individualized education plan, and this is special education. And the principal laughed, and we got it, that we do make a special plan for some kids. So it was really wonderful. And then they will bring their IEPs to me and say, read this. What are we talking about here? And so that piece is important to me. It's been an important part of what I do, because I was the special education teacher sitting there going, right, well, we haven't seen you, so how involved could you possibly be? And what it really was is they were afraid to go into the meeting. So that kind of advocacy we're doing, and so we're advocating for our clients to be able to go in and get the education needs that they want, and that's really important. And it was the same thing with the GED, I feel. We really had to educate the community that we were not providing this service, and we had to work with the community to get them to decide that funding it would be a good idea. So we were advocating for them, if that's the kind of advocacy that we're...
There's different levels of advocacy, and they're all really important, because when you're doing any kind of programming, we all know that you can do all this great service for people, but if we're not teaching them how to advocate for themselves, how to take care of themselves, how to message their needs and communicate, then it can be challenging to move through the system of service that's out there. We have great benefits for our communities, but it can be overwhelming, it can be embarrassing for people to feel like they're accessing it. And part of what I hear you saying is, you know, don't be embarrassed to reach out, you know, we're here if you're feeling overwhelmed to meet your needs.
Especially with that elderly population that you were talking about, because the elderly population sometimes feels like they're very proud. They've been working their whole lives, and now they're in a situation where they can't quite make ends meet. Well, what they have to know is a lot of these programs like CSBG, which is the Community Service Block Grant that funds community action for 1,000 agencies, that's a federal program, your federal dollars that you've been giving in. So it's almost like you gave the government a loan for today. And then you always, for the younger folks, if they are getting themselves towards self-sufficiency and they get themselves back on their feet, by all means donate to the United Way when you get there, you know, or whatever agency it was that helped you get to where you got today. So there's opportunities for you not to feel bad about it. And there's opportunity. You may never get to a place where you can give, but know that that's why these That's why these programs are in place, to make sure that we have healthy communities and to make sure that we know we need healthy communities. There's agencies like the United Way and like Southern New Hampshire Services putting it out there that there are people in our community that have needs, and what can we do as a community to support them. And to also, I think what's really important is to have the people who are able to support the agencies that do the work feel good about what we're doing, so that there's full disclosure, that they know what we're doing, that where their dollars are going or where their volunteer hours are going, so that they can feel good about it. I get frustrated when I hear that phrase, those people, referencing low-income families or families that are in immediate crisis. We don't know how they got there, and we don't know what brought them to that service today, but to know that if they're accessing the service, it took them a lot to get there, and that if you helped provide that service, you've done a huge service for your community, because that person is going to be able to remain a healthy member of your community. So that, you know, that whole full disclosure thing, I think it's so important for people to know where their dollars are going. And we really want to make sure that if anybody has a question about what we're doing, give us a call and we'll let you know. Or if they want to see us do something else, also, please call us and let us know if you know of a service gap. I think that's really important, to give the community the power to mention a service gap. And I know we did the well-being surveys, and it's really important for us to know where people want to see services provided. We're lucky in that Western Hillsborough County Family Services, we can sort of mold ourselves to the community need. Like I said, we can let go of a program if we're not meeting a need and somebody else is, or if that need isn't so urgent anymore, and we can pick up a new need and try and run with that and make that happen. I feel like it's so important, especially for small nonprofits, to be flexible. If the community is going to give us funds, we need to make sure that we're serving the community in the way the community sees necessary. And that means sometimes letting go. And I've always said that I am committed to seeing services happen. I'm not attached to being the one who does it. If somebody out there is doing it better than me, by all means, let's have them do it. You know, that's really important. This could get old fast if I hold on tightly to the things I think I need to do. I need to make sure that I'm listening. I have my finger on the pulse of the community and what the real true needs are.
You're really talking about living united,
Yeah.
which is the theme of this show. It's all about how our lives are connected to each other, whether we're a person in need at the time or a person who may be giving. But we're all connected to, you know, creating that healthy place for us to all live and work and play and be safe. So it's a really important message that you're talking about. Any other future directions that you're undertaking?
Well, the literacy piece is so big for us right now. I don't think I realized what kind of gaps there were. So we've been doing GED, and we're now talking about basic adult literacy coming to Peterborough, and being able to provide people who really are not necessarily GED candidates right now because their literacy is so low. And that's really a big piece. And also, just the piece that we're doing right now, when I'm partnering with the Education Committee for the Chamber of Commerce in Peterborough and Conval Schools, is they're starting a new financial education piece. They're working with, it's GFA is the credit union that's just come into Peterborough, and they do a financial piece where they do like it's a financial literacy fair, where the kids come in and they have to figure out whether they're going to have a job or they're going to go to college, and then what's that going to cost, and did they get the right job to pay for all that stuff. And they go around, and there's business leaders in the community that they have to go to each table, and they get like, this is how much this is going to cost you. Did you make enough money? And so they get to the end and they tally everything out, and if they didn't do it, they have to go through again. So we're working on that right now too, because I know I told you about showing kids who thought they were going to drop out. Well, we're really focusing on educating kids at a young age on what it takes to be successful and stable in a community. You know, that $800 rent isn't where it begins and ends. and if you think you're going to own a home, that this is how much that's going to cost you. And so there's a lot of different on that end. And so we've been able to partner, like I said, with some agencies, and the Chamber of Commerce is one of them, and Lyft is the other one. To that end, I think that what we're trying to do is get people more prepared. We've spent so much time handling emergent situations, and we're not going to stop doing that. But we're really looking at how we can create before it happens. How can we get you to a successful place, before it happens? And we're looking at starting that at a younger age with these financial education pieces. And I know they do financial education at the River Center for families, but we're looking at younger high school kids, so that you graduate from high school knowing that it's going to cost you about $1,600 a month to have a one-bedroom apartment and a car with cable. Once you add it all up, and you're going to eat, there's that too. And it's great to do that, and it's so disheartening when somebody says, "Well, I'll have this much in food stamps." I'm like, no. See, this is what we're trying to work out, and there's generational poverty. And when we're looking at these programs, we're looking at ways to break the cycle of generational poverty. It's not a pretty word, but it's a social worker word, so it's out there. And then the other thing we're trying to do is educate people on how they can be part of their community. There's something that's a term I coined by accident called social poverty, and it's that belief that because I am living at the apartment complexes, or because I am a food service worker or a janitor at night, I have less rights to go downtown and access programming downtown, or go to the library, or go to the tree lighting, or whatever else it is. And it's a belief that socially you're poor. You think that the dollar amount you make creates a social barrier for you. So we've been working on getting people out and about, and really putting more emphasis on how they can be active members in their community. We haven't given the program a name yet, because we're doing it very quietly, because as soon as people think they're being in a program, they get all, "Mommy!" So we've been trying to do that as quietly as possible.
Yeah, and it's really not a program in some ways. It's more about creating a culture where everybody feels like they belong and they're welcome. And I think that's a fabulous piece. We're coming to a close for the program.
Me, I talk forever. Yay!
Well, that's good, because you're doing a lot of great things, and I know there's a lot more to share. But I want to make sure that we share your contact information once again, and if you could do that nice and slow for the audience.
If you want to call me directly, Erica Alusik Bingham, the Western Hillsboro County Family Services, that's 603-924-9601. If you want to call the agency, Southern New Hampshire Services, they're located in Manchester, but they will send you to the right office if you call them, is 1-800-322-1073. And their web site is snhs.org. If I do it it's my email. So it's snhs.org, and that's their website, and it's got all drop-down menus on how to access anything within the agency, the WIC, the Head Start, the fuel assistance. The fuel assistance office in Peterborough is 603-924-2243, and they should be staffed all the time. And they can also refer you to the fuel assistance outreach offices in Milford and Hillsboro, and there used to be one in Greenville. I don't know if they'll have that staff this year or not, but you can that's how you get your appointment, your fuel assistance appointment, and they're going to tell you what paperwork to have and all of those things. If you missed any of those numbers, again, 924-9601 gets you any information you need about Southern New Hampshire Services, our children's programs, Western Hillsborough County Family Services, and any of the services that we provide. And we'll even give you services information about the agencies that United Way funds. I got that book too. So we try and make sure that any questions somebody might have about receiving services in the Monadnock region, we can answer. And if we can't answer it, we know who to refer you to. We feel that's really important.
The other way to really reach out is through the 211. And that's a little bit easier number to remember for the audience probably. But 211 is always a number that people can call for any kind of service need that they have in the Monadnock region or statewide. And they can just call and ask for your services and they'll be directed there. So just a reminder, 211. I want to thank you for joining us this evening, and also remind you that we ask that you share your stories about how you're living united, and you can do that by contacting us at liveunited@muw.org. Share your story about how you're making a difference, and you might win a t-shirt. Again, we thank you, and I want to thank you, Erica, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.